The road to Ashburn doesn't appear on GPS anymore. Drive far enough north of Columbus and the signal drops, like even satellites know to look away. When travelers finally find the rusted sign that reads County Line, Ashburn 1 mile, they always notice the graffiti first. Halloween canceled permanently. Locals insist it's just vandalism, but no one's ever caught the culprit. The legend says the words re-etch themselves each year on the same night, October 31st, 8:03 p.m., the exact minute the town's siren once sounded to mark the end of everything ordinary. In 1981, Ashburn's mayor, school board, and church council all agreed to a proclamation that defied reason. The observance of Halloween shall cease until further notice. No parades, no porch lights, no costumes, no candy. People laughed at first until they noticed something strange in the minutes of that meeting. Beside the mayor's signature is a thumbprint pressed in rust-colored ink, though he'd cut his thumb weeks earlier and the wound had already healed. Every year since, that print grows darker, as if oxidizing. Tourists take photos, post them online, and swear the mark looks fresh again by morning. The rumor is simple, terrifying, and stupid enough to sound true. The mayor didn't end Halloween. Halloween ended him. In 1983, the new sheriff ordered the dismantling of the old civil defense siren that sat on top of City Hall. He wanted to prove it couldn't still be haunting the airwaves. But when they cracked open the metal housing, the motor wasn't just seized, it was melted, as if flash heated from the inside. The electrician vomited from the smell, said it reeked of ozone and pennies. That same night, residents across 3 counties reported hearing the exact tone, one long descending wail, at precisely 8:03 p.m. Radios picked it up too, even ones with no power source. The local AM station received hundreds of calls, their lines filled with background audio that shouldn't have been possible, a crowd murmuring, laughter, children chanting trick or treat in perfect unison, and then silence broken by 3 deliberate knocks. The recording technician analyzed the waveform later and realized those knocks were impossibly regular, each exactly 17 seconds apart, down to the millisecond. The sheriff dismissed it as interference. Then he found the technician's note, knocks repeat name when reversed. He played the tape backward and heard his own first name whispered twice. The file corrupted the next day, replaced by static shaped like a heartbeat. The sheriff retired, moved 2 towns over. On his final night in office, he told his deputy one thing: if the siren calls again, don't answer the door. Deputy Clark lived in a farmhouse on the edge of town, just close enough to hear the wind drag through cornfields like a person sighing. On October 31st, 1984, he sat by his police scanner, determined to record any recurrence of the phantom siren. At exactly 8:03 p.m., the signal light blinked, though the frequency meter stayed flat. Then came the 3 knocks on his front door. He radioed the station, no response, just a faint hum under his words. Against better judgment, he opened the door. His front porch was empty, but his radio, still on the table inside, broadcast the sound of the door creaking open in real time, like it was describing his own movements half a second ahead. "Who's there?" he whispered. The radio whispered it back, same cadence, same breath. Then, from the speaker, "Clark." The voice wasn't his. He slammed the door, yanked the batteries, and drove into town, shaking. The station clock read 8:04 p.m. when he arrived, but the wall calendar had already flipped itself to November 1st. He swore he didn't touch it. The next morning, his house had burned down from the inside. No lightning, no wiring faults, only ash shaped like footprints leading away from the door. Forensics found one thing untouched by fire: his badge, bent like someone had gripped it until it screamed. Clark vanished 2 days later, but his scanner recording survived, and on the tape, just before the flames, you can hear him murmur one impossible sentence: "It's still knocking from the other side." When investigators combed through Clark's remains, they found a water-damaged Polaroid stuffed inside the back of his desk drawer. It showed Main Street during daylight, kids in costumes, streamers fluttering, storefronts smiling. But every face in the crowd looked slightly wrong, their eyes reflecting streetlights that weren't on yet. Experts blamed exposure bleed, but the picture's timestamp reads October 31st, 1981, 2 years before the supposed event. The photo predated the ban entirely. Locals recognized several people in it who shouldn't have been there. A girl who'd moved away in 1979, a grocer who'd died that summer, and Clark himself, standing behind his own patrol car, looking at the camera like he'd been caught watching a memory. The edges of the Polaroid smelled faintly of smoke, even decades later. When digital archivists scanned it, the file name saved automatically as dooropen.jpg, though they never typed those words. The same archivists later noticed that when viewed in negative, faint lettering appeared across the pavement in front of the camera's point of view, like chalk scrawled by a child's hand. It read, "Don't skip us again." A year after that discovery, the archivist's entire external drive wiped itself clean at 8:03 p.m. on Halloween night. Backup servers caught a brief burst of white noise that formed the shape of a pulse. Inside it, 3 knocks. Residents swear that on the same night the photograph resurfaced, they heard the old freight line roll through for the first time in nearly 2 decades. No schedule, no light, just the rumble of steel. Windows trembled, dogs refused to bark. Witnesses say the train had 12 boxcars, all matte black, no markings except chalk letters spelling October along the last one. The sound didn't fade like normal. It folded, looping in place. Teenagers at the overpass filmed it, but their footage showed only empty tracks, their own breathing and faint laughter under the wind. When they posted the clip online, viewers claimed they could hear names whispered between the metallic clanks, some names belonging to viewers themselves. The original video was deleted at 8:03 p.m. exactly, replaced with a new file labeled November.move. It's only 2 seconds long, but if you slow it down, you can see a reflection of a child in the window holding up 3 fingers. Each year since, someone finds a new version uploaded by an unknown user, time-stamped to the second. Everyone who's watched the clip until the end reports the same dream that night: a town with no clocks, a siren that breathes, and a train that never stops arriving. The night after the phantom train, a crossing light began to blink outside town, though the power grid had long since been disconnected. Locals called it the Ashburn Lantern. Kids dared each other to stand beneath it and wait for the sound of approaching rails. Most ran home before the minute mark, but one teenager, Becca Rowe, stayed. Her friend said she wanted proof, something to post online. At 8:03 p.m., she raised her phone and whispered, "There's nothing here." Then came the metallic groan, the same rhythm as 3 knocks. Her friend saw her silhouette freeze mid-breath lit by that single pulsing bulb. The light went out. When it came back on, Becca was gone. Her phone was found 3 days later in her locker at school, battery drained, camera open to a single black and white image. The interior of an empty train car, windows streaked with fingerprints pointing outward. Forensics dated the file metadata to 3 minutes after her disappearance. The picture file name was NOV1-Begin. Her mother still leaves a porch light burning every October 31st, though no one in Ashburn uses electricity that night. She says it's so Becca can find her way home. The neighbors say it's so the lantern knows which house to pass by. In 1992, a college radio host in Cleveland caught a fragment of a broadcast on a dead frequency, 88.3 FM. It lasted 7 minutes. An announcer reciting what sounded like a children's Halloween schedule, costume contest, parade lineup, pumpkin carving at the rec center. The feed ended abruptly with the same descending siren Ashburn was famous for. When the station replayed the tape, the host's voice appeared inside the recording, reading the same words simultaneously but slower, as though she were echoing herself from another room. Audio engineers discovered the transmission timestamp matched Becca Rowe's disappearance. Exact minute, exact second. The FCC traced the origin to a transmitter registered in Ashburn that hadn't operated since 1978. When agents visited the site, they found the tower snapped clean in half, rusted through long ago. At its base lay a school bulletin board sealed in plastic wrap. Schedules dated October 31st, 1981. The paper was dry, the ink freshly printed. The final line in red marker read, "Broadcast resumes when attendance returns." That night, the surviving audio engineer awoke to his radio whispering, "You're late for the parade." That phrase, "late for the parade," turned up everywhere the following year. Spray painted on barns, carved into picnic tables, printed on flyers that blew through town even though no one made them. At first, Ashburn residents ignored it. Then they noticed the white paint lines reappearing down Main Street, the exact route the Halloween parade would have followed if it hadn't been canceled. Someone, or something, was redrawing it, perfectly straight, overnight. Security cameras caught nothing but static from 7:59 to 8:04 p.m. One morning, a store owner named Harris found a new line curling into his shop. He followed it with a mop, scrubbing, cursing, until he reached the back door. There, painted on the metal, were 3 small handprints in the same white pigment, child-sized but too high for any child to reach. He wiped them off. The next day, they returned, slightly higher. The town council paved the street over in 1995 to cover the route once and for all. Fresh asphalt hardened, smooth and black. Yet on Halloween night, the old paint bleeds through like veins under skin. Some say if you follow the line to the end, you'll reach the train tracks again. Others say you'll reach something that remembers you trying. By 1997, the story had become folklore, a Halloween dare whispered on college campuses. But that year, an envelope postmarked Ashburn, Ohio, arrived at the State Historical Society. No return address. Inside was a folded sheet written in careful cursive, "We have waited long enough. The children grow restless. Please resume observance." Attached was a single candy corn sealed in cellophane, pristine, as if made yesterday. The lab confirmed the sugar structure was identical to a discontinued batch manufactured in 1981. Same factory lot. The historian who opened it laughed, snapped a picture, and placed the candy in her desk drawer. The next morning, her office smelled faintly of smoke and wax. The candy was gone. In its place was a small scrap of paper torn from a calendar. October 31st, circled twice. Surveillance footage showed no intrusion, yet a thin trail of white dust, like powdered sugar, led from her office down the hallway toward the exit and stopped at the window. When zoomed, a reflection in the glass revealed a blurred child's face staring in. Forensic artists could only make out one detail: the eyes, fox narrow, unblinking. In 1998, hundreds of envelopes appeared across Ohio, each containing a wax-sealed card reading, "You are invited." The return address was simply Ashburn Parade Committee. Each envelope arrived at exactly 8:03 p.m., logged by postal scanners as if delivered simultaneously. Some went to former residents. Others reached people who'd never heard of the town. When one recipient, a journalist named Peter Lang, opened his invitation live on air, a faint whirring sound filled the studio, like a toy wind-up mechanism ticking down. The card inside listed no location, only a single line of text: "All routes lead home." Moments later, every streetlight outside the station flickered once and shut off. Power returned at 8:04 p.m., and Lang's microphone captured one last noise, a distant rhythmic chant echoing over the dead air. "Trick," or "treat." No one else in the building heard it. The file was archived that night, but when engineers reopened it weeks later, the waveform was shaped like a spiral. The invitations kept coming. By the following Halloween, more than 5,000 people across the Midwest had received them, every card identical, every seal stamped with the same emblem: a ring of 12 children holding hands around a church bell. Internet forums lit up with speculation. Some claimed it was viral marketing for a horror film. Others thought it was a cult recruitment tactic. A retired postmaster pointed out that the Postal Service never recorded these envelopes entering their system. They only appeared during the scan phase, as if materializing mid-route. On the night of October 31st, 1999, an online group calling themselves the Lantern Watchers decided to track one of the invitations. A man named David Rowe, Becca's uncle, agreed to take part. He followed the postmark trail back to Ashburn. The town wasn't on any official map by then. When he arrived, he found empty houses with dishes still set at the tables and cars parked in driveways dusted with decades of pollen. Street signs were perfectly clean, freshly painted. He took photos, time-stamped each one, uploaded them in real time. The last image he posted was a shot of Main Street, faint white lines bleeding through asphalt, forming a loop. His caption read, "It's back." At 8:03 p.m., his feed cut out. His phone pinged from the same location for 7 more nights before the battery died. When police finally searched the area, they found his camera bag at the town limits. Inside was a single undeveloped Polaroid and a note written in his handwriting that said only, "All routes lead back to October." In 2002, a new generation of thrill seekers rediscovered Ashburn through that note. Urban explorers, ghost hunters, amateur filmmakers, they came with camcorders and bravado. Most left with blurry footage of cornfields and empty streets. But one team from a paranormal web series captured something else. During a midnight live stream, the host stood in front of the old city hall where the siren once sat. Behind her, the sky flickered orange like distant lightning. "There's no storm," she whispered into the camera. The viewers watching noticed something before she did. A shadow in the window behind her, tall and narrow, like someone standing perfectly still. Then came the sound, 3 deliberate knocks echoing across the broadcast, though she was outside. She turned, startled, but the glass reflected only her own silhouette. The comments filled with one word, "Move." The host leaned closer to the window. On the live stream's final frame, you can see her face an inch from the reflection. Then the feed cut to static, looping the phrase "late for the parade" in her own voice. The camera was recovered days later, still recording, battery dead, memory card hot to the touch. The footage resumes for 3 more seconds before shutting off again. In those seconds, the window is cracked open, and someone whispers from inside, "It's starting." When the footage went viral, Ashburn became a pilgrimage. Thousands of curious onlookers arrived, hoping to catch a glimpse of the town that skipped Halloween. Bloggers, skeptics, and conspiracy theorists lined the highways. But when they reached the coordinates, there was nothing. Not ruins, not rubble, just wild grass and an old train track overgrown with moss. Locals in nearby towns warned travelers that the landscape shifts. "Ashburn doesn't disappear," one gas station clerk said. "It hides." Satellite imagery confirmed the claim in a way no one expected. On Halloween night, 2004, the region's entire grid of satellite photographs failed to process for a full minute, exactly at 8:03 p.m. When images finally reappeared, a faint outline of streets formed across the fields like veins under skin. Analysts said it resembled a perfect overlay of Ashburn's old map from 1981, complete with City Hall, the school, and Main Street. But the buildings weren't ruins. They appeared lit from within. When color filters were applied, faint red tones pulsed through the image, synchronized like a heartbeat. Then, at 8:04, the streets dissolved. Only the railroad remained visible, glowing faintly like it was still conducting power. After that, no satellite ever captured that section of land again. The following year, someone or something began mailing new invitations. But these were different. They came on thick paper embossed with gold edges and a single line in the center, "You are cordially remembered." The sender's address was printed in typewriter font, "Town of Ashburn, Committee of Attendance." One arrived at the desk of an investigative reporter named Rachel Holt. She'd covered unsolved disappearances for years, never believing the folklore. But when her own name appeared on the card, spelled correctly, middle initial included, she froze. She'd never used that name publicly. The return envelope bore no stamp, no postmark, just the same wax seal, a circle of children, the church bell. She set it aside, dismissing it as a prank. That night, at precisely 8:03 p.m., every light in her apartment flickered once. Her phone buzzed. A message appeared from an unknown number. It read, "We appreciate your RSVP." The timestamp showed it was sent 38 minutes before she'd even received the envelope. The next day, Rachel's editor found her car abandoned on the shoulder of Route 61, engine still running, hazard lights blinking. The dash cam captured 6 minutes of video. At the 8:03 mark, a figure steps into the headlights, child-sized, holding a lantern, then static. By 2007, Ashburn had evolved from myth into obsession. Podcasts devoted entire seasons to it. Reddit threads archived every rumor, every piece of supposed evidence. A data analyst noticed something unnerving. Each major Ashburn event, the siren, the knocks, the train, the vanishings, occurred exactly 1,095 days apart. That's 3 years minus 1 day. When plotted on a calendar, the pattern formed an unbroken rhythm like a countdown. But to what? No one could agree. Some said it was the town's way of keeping time. Others thought it was the space between heartbeats of something sleeping beneath it. Then, on Halloween 2010, at 8:03 p.m., 1,000 Wi-Fi routers across the Midwest broadcast the same signal simultaneously, a faint analog hum buried inside the data stream. It wasn't malware, wasn't traceable, but it carried an embedded message, a single date, October 31st, 2013. Underneath the text, a soundwave file played for exactly 17 seconds. 3 knocks, evenly spaced, echoing like someone asking to be let in. By the summer of 2013, every thread of speculation had gone cold. The forums that once pulsed with nightly updates now sat dormant, archived by bots and nostalgia. Still, a few diehards clung to the pattern. They called themselves the attendance keepers. They built spreadsheets, tracked timestamps, and cross-referenced weather data for Halloween across 30 years. Their consensus was chillingly simple. Ashburn doesn't appear, it remembers. The pattern wasn't counting down to an event, but a return. Someone compared the intervals to cardiac rhythms, noting that if you treated each incident as a beat, the pulse slowed over time, like a body preparing to wake. Then in August, surveillance cameras from a freight depot 40 miles from the old Ashburn site recorded something strange. A train, unmarked, rust red, lights dim, passed through the yard at 8:03 p.m. No manifest, no scheduled route. It rolled silently until one camera caught its final car, the number 103113 stenciled in chalk. Investigators combed the rails. No tracks showed entry or exit. That footage remains the last physical record before the night everything synchronized again. October arrived early that year, cold, brittle, electric. Residents across Ohio reported a sound they couldn't locate, a low hum that slipped through window frames and televisions tuned to dead channels. It grew louder as Halloween neared, settling precisely at 2:14 a.m. each night. The same time, Becca Rowe's phone once captured that impossible image decades earlier. On October 28th, a farmer outside Shelby County found something half buried in his field. A row of jack-o'-lanterns perfectly preserved, their candles still burning, though the wax never melted. Each was carved with a single numeral. When arranged, they spelled the date of the upcoming Thursday, Halloween. He loaded one into his truck to show police, but by morning it was gone, leaving a scorch mark shaped like a ring of children holding hands. Local radio stations tried to joke about it until their signals began to distort at 8:03 p.m. every night. One host laughed nervously, saying, "Guess the ghosts are back." The line stayed open after the show ended. When technicians checked the feed, they found 4 minutes of silence, followed by a child's voice counting backward from 30. On the morning of October 31st, the sky above central Ohio hung the color of old bruises. Traffic cameras across 3 counties failed simultaneously for exactly 60 seconds. An 8:03 blackout the internet would later nickname the blink. In that minute, dozens of people claimed to see a parade marching through the mist. Silhouettes of children carrying lanterns, moving in perfect rhythm toward nowhere. No one captured a clear photo. Devices froze the moment the figures appeared. When they rebooted, the pictures displayed faint distortions shaped like hands pressed against glass. That afternoon, the hum returned, no longer distant, but inside walls, plumbing, power lines. Everything that carried current began to breathe. The emergency broadcast system triggered itself, scrolling a single word: attendance. Police dispatches flooded with noise complaints from houses that hadn't been lived in for years. One call, recorded at 8:03 exactly, captured an operator asking, "911, what's your emergency?" followed by the unmistakable reply of a child whispering, "We're ready." Then static consumed the line. By evening, the phenomenon had widened. Doorbells rang with no one outside. Television screens flickered with images of empty streets that mirrored neighborhoods still occupied. In a small town outside Dayton, a power worker named Cole Jensen filmed himself investigating a grid surge. He stepped into a substation humming at the edge of audibility. "Smells like metal and rain," he said into the camera. Behind him, the lights pulsed 3 times, slow, deliberate, patient. He turned, frowning. "That's not random," he muttered just before the feed distorted. In the final frame, his reflection appears across every glass surface around him, multiplied endlessly. A forensic analysis later confirmed something impossible. The reflections weren't identical. Each was looking at a different angle, as if observing him. When authorities arrived, the substation was empty, but Jensen's hard hat lay in the dust, filled with melted wax and a single candy corn resting in the center. At 7:59 p.m., an unregistered frequency began transmitting across every AM and FM band simultaneously. No station ID, no commercial breaks, just the slow winding of a crank. Then a voice, calm, rhythmic, familiar. "This is the Ashburn Parade Committee," it said. "All routes are open. Attendance is mandatory." The message repeated 3 times before shifting into what sounded like a broadcast from decades past. Brass instruments, distant laughter, and the chime of a bell ringing 12 times. Listeners across the country described the same sensory effect: the faint smell of bonfire smoke, the taste of burnt sugar, the sensation of fabric brushing against their arm as though someone unseen had just passed by. Those who recorded it discovered that when the file played backward, the voice continued normally, still repeating the announcement word for word. At 8:03 p.m., the broadcast ended. For 1 minute, the world's clocks aligned. Every electronic screen, from smartphones to security monitors, flashed a single phrase in white text over black background: "You are late for the parade." Then, as before, silence. But silence in Ashburn has never meant peace. In the hours after, emergency lines across the Midwest lit up with identical reports. Processions of light moving through fog, whispers beneath floors, reflections blinking out of sync. One trucker, passing near the old county border, swore he saw the town return in full. "It was all there," he told dispatch, voice shaking. "Street lights, porch lights, even the water tower. Kids walking between houses like it was Halloween again." When asked how he knew they were kids, he said, "They weren't tall enough to reach the windows, but they were holding lanterns." Then his signal dropped at 8:04. His truck was found 2 days later, idling at the roadside. The dash cam kept recording until the battery died, the last second showing a single figure standing in the beam of the headlights, holding up a candy corn like an offering. The sound of the hum begins again, steady, patient, before the screen fades to black. By dawn, emergency responders finally reached what remained of Ashburn's coordinates. The sun rose over empty farmland, yet the soil still steamed like it had been recently walked upon. Dozens of footprints, small and bare, crossed one another in looping patterns that led nowhere. The air smelled faintly of caramel and ozone. A single street sign jutted from the ground. Main Street, its paint pristine, its bolts still warm. The sheriff of the nearest county ordered a perimeter sweep. They found no structures, no debris, just scattered remnants of candy still wrapped, each piece stamped with a date, October 31st, 1981. Every wrapper was sealed, but when forensic techs opened one, the paper inside wasn't candy at all. It was film, tiny spools of black and white negatives showing houses, porches, faces of children smiling mid-trick-or-treat. None matched any existing records. When the negatives were developed, each frame flickered like it had been taken seconds apart. But there was no photographer, no shadows, just the same shot, looping infinitesimally closer to the viewer, as if something inside the picture was moving forward between frames. One officer swore he heard faint music while holding the negatives to the light. A band, distant but growing clearer the longer he stared. For weeks, the government kept the area under quarantine. News anchors called it a chemical leak. Pilots were ordered to divert flight paths, yet people online noticed something the news didn't. Certain weather radars showed a circular storm hovering precisely over Ashburn's coordinates every night at 8:03 p.m., dissipating at 8:04. The cycle repeated for 13 days before vanishing. But inside that period, radio enthusiasts across the country captured fragments of a new signal. It wasn't words this time, it was music. A slow looping march played backward, each note stretched into a whispering hum. Audio engineers reversed the track and isolated a faint second layer beneath it. A voice counting names, thousands of them. Most were unintelligible, but one name came through clearly, spoken twice. Rachel Holt. Her missing persons case was reopened. The detective assigned to it traced the last ping from her phone. It led not to a tower, but to a signal reflection bouncing between abandoned copper lines in the Ashburn region, repeating endlessly in a closed circuit. It's still looping to this day. Then came the letters, real envelopes this time, paper yellowed like old hymnal pages, each postmarked simply October 31st. Recipients spanned across the country. Some were relatives of those who vanished, others random. Inside each was a single sheet of music, a waltz titled The Parade Returns. No composer listed, no publisher, no instructions except the tempo marking, 8:03. Amateur musicians began playing it online, uploading renditions as a curiosity. Yet everyone who recorded it experienced the same phenomenon. Electrical interference, lights dimming, static blooming through microphones. A violinist in Oregon stopped mid-performance when she saw her reflection blink out of sync. A pianist in Florida fainted after playing the final chord, her hands locked in position, frozen until midnight. Analysis of the melody revealed it wasn't random. The spacing of its notes matched the coordinates of Ashburn's town square, and at the precise moment of the song's final note, the waveform formed three sharp peaks, visual representations of knocks, the same rhythm that started it all. By late November, paranormal investigators flooded the region again, but the land had changed. The soil was fused into smooth, dark glass, and compasses spun aimlessly. Yet, in the reflection of that glass, something moved. Faint outlines of lampposts, mailboxes, rooftops, as if the town existed one layer beneath, shimmering through like an image trapped in water. The hum returned too, faint and almost polite, pulsing just below hearing. A group of engineers brought seismic equipment, hoping to trace vibrations underground. Their monitors displayed readings that mimicked breathing. Inhale, exhale, deep and patient. On the third night, one of them lowered a microphone into a fissure in the glass and recorded for 6 hours. When they played it back, the first 4 minutes were empty static. Then came a voice, a man's, calm and almost relieved. "It's all right," he said. "They just wanted the night back." The team dismissed it as contamination from a nearby radio frequency until they realized the voice belonged to Cole Jensen, the lineman who vanished 3 weeks prior. On the first anniversary of the blink, something else happened. Across America, from New York to Kansas, every church bell that hadn't rung in decades chimed 12 times at 8:03 p.m. No mechanical link, no synchronized system. Just 12 tones, each slightly out of tune, each followed by the faint echo of children's laughter carried on dead air. The hum returned once more, now layered beneath the sound of a train rolling somewhere far away. That night, a new kind of letter arrived. This one wasn't printed or sealed, it was digital, sent from addresses that no longer existed to inboxes of those who'd ever searched for Ashburn. The subject line read, "Final attendance confirmed." The message body contained one sentence, "Halloween has remembered you." Within an hour, every post, image, and video about Ashburn disappeared from the internet. Even cached versions were gone. But the bandwidth spike remained, a single surge recorded at 8:03 p.m., measured in exact rhythm with a human heartbeat. A year later, no one used the name Ashburn aloud anymore. It was called the Missing County, the Loop, or simply the Place. Truckers avoided that stretch of highway, though some claimed their radios still caught faint transmissions when passing mile marker 203. The pattern was always the same, a burst of static, a child's laughter, then a single voice saying, "We start again." In October of 2014, a drifter named Lena Ward ignored the warnings. She live-streamed her journey, promising her followers she'd find what's left. The footage begins normally, empty roads, distant cornfields, but at exactly 8:03 p.m., her headlights caught the outline of houses where no town should have been. "Do you see that?" she asked the camera, breath quickening. "It's all lit up." Her voice trembled, but she kept driving. Then, without transition, the screen went black. The stream continued for 12 more minutes, audio only. First footsteps on gravel, then a faint parade rhythm. Snare, brass, a child humming the waltz. Finally, Lena's voice, soft and unsteady. "They remember you when you look too long." The video ended at 8:15 p.m. The next day, her car was found idling on the highway shoulder. The engine still ran, but the fuel gauge never moved. Her phone was on the dashboard, recording. The last frame showed a reflection of her face in the windshield, eyes open, pupils shaped like candle flames. After that, the phenomenon spread beyond the county. Entire towns reported echo nights, moments when clocks paused at 8:03 p.m. and every sound vanished except the slow rhythm of footsteps somewhere unseen. In St. Louis, emergency lines were flooded with reports of children knocking on doors, whispering, "Trick or treat," though no one was outside. A digital forensics team traced the disturbances to a single root directory hidden deep in the national broadcast system, a folder labeled Attendance Archive 1981. Inside were hundreds of corrupted files, all audio, each 3 minutes and 7 seconds long. When stitched together, they formed a continuous recording, the hum that started it all. At random intervals, the voice of a man interrupted, reading names in a tone somewhere between a roll call and a sermon. Experts analyzing the waveforms noticed something horrifying. The audio pattern matched human EEG brain activity. The file wasn't broadcasting sound, it was recording thought. And its signal wasn't being sent from Earth. It was being received. The investigation reached a dead end when agents sent to trace the anomaly's source disappeared mid-journey. Their last coordinates placed them somewhere within the Appalachian radio quiet zone, an area deliberately shielded from interference. Local rangers found their vehicle weeks later. The tires were deflated, but the dashboard clock was frozen at 8:03. In the back seat lay an open notebook filled with sketches of carnival tents, children with blank faces, and rows of jack-o'-lanterns arranged like constellations. The final page contained a sentence repeated 20 times in uneven handwriting. Every Halloween is the same night, trying again. When researchers at the University of Ohio modeled the timeline of every related incident from 1981 to present, they discovered an unsettling pattern. Each resurgence aligned with the solar cycle, specifically when the Earth's magnetic field reached its weakest point. Whatever Ashburn was, it didn't die. It waited, like a song held in a breath, ready for the next note. By 2015, it wasn't a story anymore. It was a broadcast. No one could isolate where it came from. Cell towers, underground cables, even smart speakers all played fragments of the same melody at random times, always at the edge of perception. Psychologists coined the term auditory phantasm syndrome to explain the phenomenon, claiming mass hysteria fueled by viral folklore, but not everyone believed it. An engineer named Theo Marks published a paper claiming the hum carried embedded data, patterns resembling ancient phonetic structures, almost like language. He theorized the signal was self-replicating, rewriting memory itself. "It's not that we remember Ashburn," he said in an interview. "It's that Ashburn remembers us." 2 weeks later, Theo vanished. His home office was found empty except for his tape recorder still running. The final recording is 6 seconds long. First a deep inhale, then his voice whispering, "It's my turn to march." That Halloween, the skies over Ohio turned orange at midnight. Not fire, not aurora, something between the two. The light pulsed in perfect time with the hum, visible as far west as Kansas. News outlets scrambled for explanations, calling it electromagnetic interference, atmospheric inversion, localized solar reflection. But no one could explain the silhouettes that appeared against the glow. Figures walking in rows, heads bowed, lanterns in hand. The air smelled faintly of melted sugar. Roads leading toward the phenomenon filled with cars that never arrived. Every clock across 5 counties froze at 8:03 p.m. for exactly 1 minute, then resumed. When it was over, nothing remained. No debris, no witnesses, just a stretch of asphalt covered in candy corn and the faint outline of a parade route burned into the ground. Satellites above recorded something stranger still. For that single minute, the United States map displayed a new point of light. Small, bright, labeled Ashburn. Weeks after the light vanished, the world seemed normal again. People stopped talking about the hum, stopped checking clocks at 8:03, stopped expecting the air to change, but something subtle had shifted. Across Ohio, children began drawing the same thing in class, a row of smiling jack-o'-lanterns leading to a clock with no hands. Teachers laughed, calling it Halloween excitement, until one noticed the detail every drawing shared: a small sign behind the pumpkins that read, "Ashburn Parade, October. 31, attendance required." The children couldn't explain where they'd seen it. "It's just there," one girl said, "in the quiet part before sleeping." Psychologists suggested media influence, but parents swore none of their kids had internet access or knew the story. One night, a mother recorded her son sleep-talking. Between breaths, he whispered, "Don't be late this time." When she played it back the next day, the words were gone. All that remained was the hum, steady, patient, and unmistakably alive. As October 2016 drew close, an independent documentary crew returned to the site once known as Ashburn. They hoped to capture residual EMF readings or atmospheric anomalies. Something, anything, to prove the legend wasn't over. Their footage begins under a leaden sky, the glassy ground dull beneath their boots. The leader, a woman named Marin Cole, narrates softly, "We're here to find the town that never stopped celebrating." Her tone falters as the temperature drops. At 7:59 p.m., their instruments spike. Radiation, sound, even gravity distortions. The air itself seems to vibrate. Then, faintly, a parade tune drifts from nowhere, distant brass carried on wind that shouldn't exist. One cameraman swears he sees silhouettes in the glass below, walking. When he kneels to focus, the surface ripples. In the reflection, a child looks up, smiling through candlelight. The recording ends with a static burst and the words, "We've been expected." The crew never returned, but their footage uploaded itself 4 days later, time-stamped 8:03 p.m. By now, the phenomenon wasn't localized. It was contagious. People who watched the footage reported strange after-effects. Dreams of trick-or-treaters who stopped at their door but never left. Reflections that blinked late. Whispers reminding them of a promise they never made. Radio hosts began playing the parade waltz during late-night segments as a novelty, until one by one their broadcasts cut to static, always mid-bar, always at 8:03. Government advisories told citizens to avoid participation in unsanctioned Halloween observances. Churches issued warnings against remembering what was meant to be forgotten. But the harder the world tried to bury the story, the louder the hum grew. It began leaking into everyday life. Computer fans, air conditioners, the pause between commercials. One cryptographer described it perfectly. "It's not coming through our machines. Our machines are remembering it for us." Then, on October 31st, 2017, the world blinked. Every GPS system on Earth recalibrated itself for exactly 60 seconds, centering not on the planet's axis, but on a set of coordinates in rural Ohio, the old Ashburn site. Satellites captured what looked like a town flickering into existence beneath heavy cloud cover. Streetlights blinked on, roads unspooled like ribbons, and for the first time since 1981, the outline of a parade could be seen from orbit. Thousands of faint, glowing figures marching through fog, converging on a single point, what used to be Main Street. From that point radiated the hum, measured at a frequency identical to the human heartbeat. Experts claimed interference. Pilots flying overhead reported light distortions, though their altimeters spun wildly between altitudes. When radar stabilized, Ashburn was gone again, but its shadow, an electromagnetic imprint, remained hovering over the farmland like a ghost refusing to exhale. For the first time, the public began to understand the truth. The town hadn't vanished. It had looped. Every 32 years, it replayed its final Halloween, drawing closer each time. The festival, the lights, the laughter, it was all a memory trying to solidify again. Scientists studying the residual field discovered that the pulse aligned perfectly with the frequency of human REM sleep. The theory formed quietly in corners of academia. Ashburn was dreaming, a collective echo of thousands of minds frozen in one night, replaying endlessly, pulling the waking world into its rhythm. The hum wasn't a sound, it was the town breathing in its sleep, waiting for enough of us to remember to wake it. The closer the anniversary came, the stronger the pull grew. Across the Midwest, clocks started drifting again, all stopping at the same minute, 8:03 p.m. But this time, they didn't restart. The second hand trembled, the lights dimmed, and somewhere in the static between radio channels, a voice began counting down. At first, the countdown was a whisper, barely audible beneath static, spoken in hundreds of voices at once, each slightly out of sync. By the fifth night, it was everywhere. Baby monitors, microwaves, even voicemail tones began echoing the same pattern. 10, 9. On the sixth night, astronomers noticed a strange fluctuation in the ionosphere, a shimmer that spread outward like ripples on water. It pulsed in time with the countdown. Governments released statements blaming electrical interference. But interference doesn't breathe, and that's what it sounded like, a living thing gathering air. On the seventh night, every reflective surface in the Midwest began to tremble faintly. People swore they saw shapes moving just beneath them, as though the glass remembered something the world had forgotten. And then, at exactly 8:02 p.m. on October 31st, the countdown stopped at 1. The silence that followed wasn't absence, it was pressure, the weight of attention. Somewhere, deep beneath the soil of Ashburn, something opened its eyes. The final recording came from a storm chaser stationed outside Cleveland. His dash cam caught the horizon shifting like a mirage, clouds curving inward toward an unseen center. The hum returned, now unmistakably musical, a full parade orchestra playing the same waltz backwards. The man's voice trembles as he narrates, It's like the skies folding in. Lightning flashes reveal silhouettes of houses, trees, even faces, flickering like frames of an old film. Then, faintly, children's laughter spills from the speakers, layered over a deeper sound, a rhythmic exhale, slow and patient. The camera shakes violently before freezing mid-frame. At that exact moment, every television in America flickers for 3 seconds. Viewers describe the same image, a small-town street lined with jack-o'-lanterns, a brass band mid-step, and in the distance, a figure standing at the end of the road holding a lantern. When the lights returned, the broadcast resumed where it left off, but every clock on screen read 8:03. The world moved on, as it always does. The headlines blamed mass psychosis, electromagnetic storms, and even AI hallucination contagion. But beneath the noise, a pattern formed. Across multiple time zones, people woke up at exactly 8:03 p.m. Bleeding nose, dry throat, heartbeat perfectly synchronized with a distant rhythm. Security cameras captured strange parades of light crossing empty streets, always heading west, always silent. Psychologists dismissed them as collective dreaming events. Yet one physicist from Purdue made a discovery that changed everything. Every recorded Ashburn frequency contained a hidden waveform identical to an old heartbeat pattern belonging to a child, his daughter's. She disappeared in 1981, the night Ashburn skipped Halloween. His research paper ended with one line: "It isn't haunting us, it's inviting us back." The following year, trick-or-treaters across the country noticed something new. In nearly every town, no matter how far apart, one child appeared that no one recognized, always wearing a burlap mask stitched into a smile. They never spoke, just held out a hand filled with candy corn. When parents asked where they lived, the children would simply tilt their heads and say, "You'll see it soon." In every case, the stranger vanished before the night ended. But in the weeks that followed, households reported hearing 3 knocks on their doors long after midnight. Phones recorded static bursts exactly 1 minute apart, each containing fragments of the parade waltz slowed to a near-human heartbeat. Communities dismissed it as urban legend until entire neighborhoods began reporting the same dream, walking through fog toward a parade that never quite reached them. At the front of that parade, always, was a little girl with fox-like eyes, holding a lantern. Now, decades later, Ashburn has become a kind of cultural ghost. Urban explorers search for it, documentaries speculate about mass hysteria, and message boards argue over grainy clips that resurface every Halloween. But those who've truly seen the footage all say the same thing. The hum isn't gone. It's waiting. It seeps into the cracks between seconds, into the pause before thunder, into the breath you hold when you think you hear something moving behind you. At 8:03 p.m., if you listen carefully, you'll hear it. The faint rhythm of tires over gravel, the echo of laughter carried on static. Some say it's memory, others say it's punishment. But those who've really listened know the truth. It isn't the dead haunting the living. It's the living haunting the night they never finished. Because Ashburn didn't die. It fell asleep. And every Halloween, for one perfect minute, it dreams of us.